Now here's the thing, that voice is there as a guide, calling us to the best versions of ourselves. And a lot of times we, in our past, have had so many other people that have used shame and fear and doubt and guilt to motivate us, that now we use that voice of shame and fear and doubt and guilt as an internal voice to motivate us. And it doesn't work. It's not effective and it's not fun. Hey, Joshua Ludlam with Exponential Evolution. Listen, you probably clicked on this video because of the title, Making Friends with the Voice Inside Your Head. It's possible, and it probably doesn't seem like that right now because you've spent so much of your life, probably most of your life, if not all of your life, with that voice, that judgmental voice in the back of your head, that critical voice, that angry voice, that shaming voice. And I want you to know that it's very possible for you to change that. And I'm going to give you 3 steps to be able to do that today, to start changing that voice inside your head. And if you'll take these 3 steps, I promise you that voice inside your head will become a friend to you. Now here's the thing, that voice is there as a guide. I'll talk more about that later. I talk about that a lot throughout my programs and through the content that I have elsewhere. But that voice is saying to us, calling us to what's possible. It's calling us to the best versions of ourselves. And a lot of times we, in our past, have had so many other people that have used shame and fear and doubt and guilt to motivate us, that now we use that voice of shame and fear and doubt and guilt as an internal voice to motivate us. And it doesn't work. It's not effective and it's not fun. So I want to give you these 3 steps that you can start taking right now to start changing the way that that voice inside of your head functions. See, we would not ever talk to somebody else the way that we talk to ourselves. We talk to ourselves day in and day out. I used to have this voice all the time, that one that would say things like, "You're an idiot. How stupid are you? You'll never ever be able to live up to the standard. You'll never ever be able to go do what you want. You're not smart enough. You're not rich enough. There's not enough time. There's not enough love for you to be able to have that relationship that you want." And all of these voices are coming in and saying what's not possible. And at the same time, there's another voice that says, "No, but I know that this is possible. I know that this is available to me." Those voices, both of them, are there as guides to say, number 1, what's possible, and as a way of saying what's in the way. So the first thing that I want you to do, starting right now, to be able to make a shift in how that voice talks to you, is to agree with yourself and make a commitment to yourself that you will only speak to yourself in a kind voice, in a way that's uplifting, in a way that's loving. Just like you would only speak to a friend or a lover or your children or a child, maybe a niece or a nephew, any child that's in your life, you would never speak to them the way that you speak to yourself. So right now, I want you to make that commitment that you'll speak to yourself only in kindness. Because when you'll do that, when you'll set that boundary, just like with any other relationship, that voice in your head is a relationship. It might seem a little strange at first because you're not used to thinking about yourself as a relationship with yourself. But that's exactly what it is. So if you'll set that boundary, you'll start to be able to hear that voice from a kind and from a loving standpoint. I remember when I was going through my divorce about 8 years ago, I was so frustrated and angry at myself for yet another failure. I had left the faith that I grew up in, I had quit a job, and now I left my marriage. And I saw every single one of these as failures. And I can look back now, and I know that they were really realignment to what was true for me. But at the time, they felt like such failures. And that voice in my head one night, I remember looking in the mirror and just repeating over and over with like tears streaming down my face, "I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you." And I made a commitment to shift that voice. And a lot has changed. One of those things that changed is I made a commitment to myself. The other is that I made a commitment to being the type of person that didn't need to be hated, about taking right action that allowed me to be feeling good about who I was. And that voice shifted over the years. It took several years for me, and I know that it doesn't have to take that long for you, but it took several years for me. To where last year, as I was leaving to head out on a trip, I was changing a light bulb at the last minute. I was rushing to get out to the airport, and as I was changing the light bulb fell and it crashed on the ground in front of me and shattered into 1,000 pieces. And that old voice would have said to me something like, "You idiot, we don't have time for this. How could you be so stupid?" But it didn't do that this time. For the first time ever in my life, that voice spoke kindly, and it's only spoken kindly to me since. It simply said, "You're out of flow, bro." I don't know where it got that language, but it was just a gentle reminder for me to come back to the present moment and take care of what I needed to take care of from a place of love. So, your first commitment, and I want you to repeat this. I commit to speaking to myself only with kind and loving words, the way that I would speak to a friend, a lover, or a child, because I am my own friend, my own lover, my own parent to my inner child. So the second thing that we get to do, if we have agreed to only speak kindly to ourselves, the second thing is to listen to that voice when it speaks. I want to lay a couple of foundational pieces to this before I go further. First of all, our brains are meaning-making machines. They want to make sense of the world around us. So when we make a decision about something, when we make an agreement about something, our brain goes into overdrive to filter out all of the other data that doesn't fit that belief. So when I make a decision about something, my brain uses a certain part of the brain, the reticular activating system, to filter out everything that doesn't fit what that belief is. So for instance, the best well-known use of this is when you think about going to buy a car, or when you buy a car. All of a sudden, you'll start seeing all of those cars just like your car on the road. You may not have even ever seen them before. It's not that there are more of them, it's just that your brain is making you aware of all of the ones that are out there. So when we make a decision about something, when we create a belief, now we start to see the evidence of that throughout our lives. The problem is that a lot of the beliefs and decisions that we made were made at a very young age. Before we even were able to make a conscious decision, we had a lot of subconscious decisions that were made. And so now our world is entirely about looking for those agreements, looking for the verification of those beliefs. The second step, or the second piece of this, is that when we are out of alignment with that belief, when something happens that is not evidence for this belief, it creates kind of a cognitive dissonance. The cognitive dissonance is, I believe this, but I see evidence for something else. And so it creates this uncomfortableness. Sometimes it's physically uncomfortable, sometimes it's emotionally uncomfortable. But the idea is that our brains want the world to make sense. They want everything to fit into this belief. And so when we have a desire that doesn't fit in with this belief, our brain all of a sudden starts to get really uncomfortable. It starts to create emotional responses that are uncomfortable. And so when that voice speaks, sometimes that voice speaks in emotion, sometimes that voice speaks in actual words. It's giving us a warning sign that says, listen, I believe something, but we're acting differently, and I want you to know that we're out of alignment. Sometimes this thing that we want to do is the best thing for us, but we believe that we can't have this thing. Maybe we believe we're not worthy of it. Maybe we believe that it's actually not available in the world, and so what's the use of trying? And sometimes what we actually believe is that we are better than what we are acting, and we get to change that. We're acting in an inferior way. And so either way, that voice is saying the action that you're taking is not in alignment with our beliefs. And so I want you to start just honoring that voice, being grateful that that voice is taking the time out to show you where your beliefs are not aligning with your actions. Because that place of being where your beliefs don't align with your actions is incredibly inauthentic. It's not fun. It's where most of the stress and the frustration in our life comes from, where most of the friction comes from. It's why we get into this shame and this guilt, and that's why we live in this fear a lot of times, is because those two things don't match up, our actions and our beliefs or our agreements. And so thank that voice. Be grateful that that voice is willing to speak up, and listen and honor that voice. I think of that voice because so many of those decisions were made at such a young age as my inner child just speaking up and saying, wait, but listen, are you sure that's the right thing to do? Are you sure that's the best way to go? And eventually we get to say, yeah, we're heading for this really great thing. Or, you know what, you're right, that's not in alignment with what's true for me. That's not in alignment with my values. Thank you for speaking up. So honor that voice. Listen to that voice. And that brings us to the third step. It's a commitment to taking action from a place of love. Because a lot of times that voice that's speaking is coming from a place of protection, from a place of fear, from a place of saying, if you step out to this great thing that's available to you, you'll lose your friends, you'll lose your family, you'll never make enough money, you're going to look like an idiot. All of those voices of fear are designed to protect us, and they're limiting us from our greatness. And so when we decide to take action from a place of love, and again, love to me is the most empowered state that you can take action from. When you can take action from that place of love, that is when the magic happens in our world. So sometimes what that's going to mean, in fact, most of the time what that's going to mean, is that we get to change our beliefs to line up with the best and highest version of ourselves. And for some people, that feels really hard to do. But it's actually just as easy as taking out the old code and putting in the new code. Now, I have a whole program that's designed to help to get you to there, that's designed to help you understand how to find those old beliefs, those fear beliefs, and how to line them up to take bold, strong action. It's called the Exponential Evolution Code, and you get to take and walk through those steps of how to change that old fear-based code into a love-based code. Because here's the other piece of this. You will never be able to take action consistently or for a long time that's against your beliefs. We talked about your brain and your body wants to stay in that alignment. Your whole spirit wants to stay in that alignment. So if your beliefs are in fear and you know that there's other things available to you, it's going to be hard to stay in that consistent action without shifting those beliefs. And those beliefs, those agreements, those decisions that you've made are available for you to shift. But when you take action from a place of love, rather than from a place of fear, it gives you the confidence, the boldness, the courage to be able to do so, and that everything in your life comes from loving beliefs about yourself, about the world around you, about the resources that you have available to you, and create strong, loving, empowered action. I want you to make friends with that voice in your head. So first, make that commitment to only speak kindly. Second, make a commitment to listen, to honor that voice. And third, to take action, to make a change, to not sit around waiting for that voice to have to speak up again, but that we take loving, strong action. To have an exponential evolution in our life, it takes just taking one step forward, one step at a time. whatever your next best step forward is in order to change that code of fear into a code of love is what you get to take right now. And that might mean scheduling some time with me to talk about it. What we will do is we will talk about that code of fear. I'll show you where a couple of places are in your life. I'll give you some ways that you can shift that code into a code of love and start taking action immediately. It's a free call. Book that call right now, right below, and I will make sure that you get on a call with me and we can take action and start creating your exponential evolution code. I will see you soon.